我先做一个简单的自我介绍。可能我们今天现在也有很多家长不断的在进来。我们公司呢，先做一个简单的自我介绍。你看一下 Sam 是可以讲的，你也是可以讲的，对吧？那就 OK，perfect。新进来的家长把你的静音掉，对就可以了。Alex，你可以操作一下在后面。
好。
嗯哼。OK，我们公司呢是美国明日精英 Tomorrow's Elite International Education Center，美国明日精英国际教育中心。我们2014年在美国成立，至今已经快8年的历史了。那么我们公司呢，从2018年开始呢，就是说之前我们有一些很多业务是跟国际留学和夏令营、冬令营有关。那么2018年之后，我们会涉猎一些高中规划和大学申请。那么目前从2018年到现在，我们已经有很多学生从我们这里去获得非常好的这个顾问的咨询和获得很好的学校的这个录取。那么从去年开始，我们的信心越来越高涨，因为我们手上有非常多的好的优秀的顾问团队，包括我们的就是前哈佛大学面试官 Alex，就是现在这个主持人 Alex。还有就是我们的现在今天为大家作为文书讲解的一个，也是哈佛大学的前招生助理，招生办公室，他曾经帮很多学生把文书撰写的就是修改的非常完美，然后获得了一些 IC 这个美国非常著名的大奖。而且他也培养了很多孩子进入美国前30和前25的藤校。那么我们还有一个顾问呢，就是斯坦福医学院的招生官邦尼。所以我们现在的顾问团队就是非常的优秀和优质，能够为很多的家长提供学生和提供这些优质的这种高中规划和大学申请的服务。那么今天我们带来的讲座呢，就是说如何写一篇非常完美的，就是能够让藤校招生官眼前为之一亮的文书，就 essay。那么包括我们今年有很多孩子也要申请大学，包括11月份就要异地了，所以说也剩不了几个月的时间了。但是呢，就是说文书对于一个我们这个申请美国大学的孩子是相当重要的。如果你的GPA 或者是说你的 SAT 都已经固定了，那么你最后呈现在招生官面前，他可能用几分钟来看你的这个presentation 的时候，可能就是一个非常完美的故事呈现他面前。你怎么很好的体现出你的个人的经历、素质、你的文笔，还有你所有的梦想，你在高中4年完成的这个一个历险的经历，完美的呈现在他的面前。所以文书也是非常的重要。那么今天呢，我们就请 Sam 来给我们做一个讲解，他也会带了3篇非常 excellent 的这个 essay 给大家做分享。他也会讲解一下，比如说这些文书到底是怎么写出来的，之前 before 和 after 之后的对比。那么如果学生有意见有些想法的话，也可以提问，在我们的后面提问。那么我们演讲的时间是45分钟，之后的提问是30分钟。就是这样子。所以大家如果是之后呢，你比如对我们的顾问感兴趣，对我们公司感兴趣，你可以跟我联系，比如通过后面的这个微信的2维码，或者是说一些联系方式找到我，然后我们可以做一些跟顾问的1对1的这种沟通。我们的沟通第一次都是免费的。会给你做一个整体的一个诊断，看你的孩子到底处于什么样的一个水平，应该做一些哪些方面的精进，来帮他进入非常梦想的大学。OK，那我们现在就开始吧。那 Alex 你说几句，然后我们就可以交给 Sam 了。
Okay, so welcome to Sam's presentation. My name is Alex, and this is Sam. I did a few presentations over the past few months with Bella. I've talked about college admissions, about what I did in high school and middle school, and about the Ivy League personality, the kind of personality that you need to have in order to get into an Ivy League school, beyond just having the extracurriculars and grades and SATs. But today, we'll be focusing on the last part of the college admissions process, which is the college essay. And Sam is one of the best writers that I know, and one of the best essay instructors for students with coming up with essay topics or fine-tuning the essay for a excellent essay on the application. So I'll let Sam introduce more about himself and let Sam take over the stage.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Bella, for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. Alex exaggerates my abilities as a writer myself, but I do enjoy teaching writing. I've been a teacher of writing for more than 10 years, including at the Harvard Writing Center. Worked with hundreds, well, thousands probably, actually, of students on college essays, essays for courses in history, English, philosophy, any type of subject, and then working on all kinds of pre-college prep classes as well. So this is a topic that I love to get into. I love to get into with students because it's kind of a unique assignment in many of their academic lives. And yeah, I'll talk about why that is and what that means in terms of the process of writing the essay. So let me put my screen up here on the board. Can everyone see this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So just to set some expectations, I am a teacher, and this is what we do at the beginning of sessions with groups of people. There will be reading. You will have reading to do in this presentation. We're going to look at some essays. We're going to look at some essays before they've gone through the process of revision. We're going to look at what the process of revision from a first draft to a final essay looks like. There will be questions. I'm really hoping everyone will participate. So you can type into the chat. I'm going to keep the chat bar open. So at certain points, I am going to ask questions of you all, the audience, and ask for your input. And I'll read it out. I'll read out your answers. And as always, there's no such thing as a bad question. There's dozens of people here. So chances are, if you have a question, if you're curious about something, someone else is going to have that question too. Okay, so let's get to it. What does an Ivy League admissions essay look like? This is actually a different question than the question that's posed in the presentation. The question from the presentation is how to write an Ivy League admissions essay. What is the process? You know, how do you get from idea phase to actually writing it? Well, but the first step to knowing that is, what do these essays actually look like? So this is the first time that I'd like to ask for a little bit of participation. Has anyone read a college essay before, a good one? What's your impression of what a college essay is supposed to look like? What do you think is supposed to be in the college essay? If you have some input now, please put it into the chat. I'll give you a couple minutes. Has to be truthful, absolutely. Knowledgeable vocabulary tells a unique story, good. Not looking like a resume, more depth about what you learn, grow, and impact. You can get a sense of the applicant's personality, tells who you are. Yep, very good. Very good. Yeah, these are some important points. Truthful, authentic, meaning it really reflects who you actually are. Reflect on how the experience benefited you rather than just telling a story. Yes, great point. There has to be a meaning. Like, why is this story being told? You can get a sense of the uniqueness of the applicant. Good. Yeah, these are some great ideas. So first reading section. I'm going to start just by putting an essay up here. It's a little small. Bella, were we able to distribute these files for people to download?
Sam, if you want, I can send the files in Zoom.
Yeah, I can upload this directly to the chat. So if you want to follow along here on this chat, this PDF is now in the chat. You can open up the file yourself. What I'd like everyone to do is follow along if you can. I'm going to read it out loud, and I'd like you to make some observations. This is a very good college essay that gained admission to Harvard, Yale, Columbia, UPenn, pretty much everywhere that it applied to. So, without music, life would be an error. Friedrich Nietzsche. I was 13 years old. My hands trembled as I fit my short, stubby fingers to the tightly bunched strings and slender neck of my dad's Conqueror guitar. A small, battered old thing, it felt alien in my hands as I picked my way through Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here, a song far outside the repertoire of any school or all-county orchestra in which I played the double bass. Nevertheless, my desire to emulate the musical heroes of my childhood easily overwhelmed the difficulty and discomfort of learning the new instrument. I played for hours upon days upon weeks. Within 6 months, I had recorded Easy to Read, my first album, an odd assortment of tunes ranging from covers of Coldplay to four-chord originals about the heart-wrenching humiliation of the middle school social scene. It was the kind of album that only an ambitious, overconfident, and rather confused kid would release. Gradually, I began to realize that music would come to provide me with a sense of community, comfort, and internal strength, some of the benefits that other people may obtain from their religion. My first inkling of this came with my first gig in the spring of 2004. A friend and local musician booked my band, Red Herring, into a slot as a special guest at the Sportsman's Tavern, or as the sign above its door proudly proclaimed, the honkiest tonkiest beer joint in town. I vividly remember the curious but skeptical looks of the regulars at the bar, the smiling, encouraging faces of my friends and parents, and the nervous, jittery, almost hysterical looks of my bandmates. More than anything, I remember the man in the corner who leaned over to his friend to whisper, quite audibly, "This is going to be embarrassing," as we walked on stage. The sound of the first chord swept away our nervousness. Energized by the music, we pounded through 4 original songs and finished with a cover of Nirvana's Polly. When the man in the corner put down his beer and cigarette to stand up and join the rest of the crowd in a whooping ovation, I got my first glimpse of the power of music. Without a word of dialogue, we'd opened a common current of communication with the audience. The positive energy that flowed from the band out through the speakers and back from the audience was palpable. From that experience on, music didn't just stroll nonchalantly into my life. Like first true love, it swept through me like a relentless wind. It began to provide a framework through which I would see the world. I learned to see my connections with the people around me in terms of chord patterns and songs. Nearly every experience, every feeling has become a phrase, a smooth harmony, or mournful, distorted guitar. My relationship with music provides me not only with a sense of community, but also an inner strength and a voice for my ideals. To me, there is nothing that better articulates hope than Sailing to Philadelphia by Mark Knopfler. No greater expression of political dissent than when Bob Dylan sings the line, "with guns in their hands and God on their side." And when I feel discouraged, I need only immerse myself in Melissa McClellan's album, Thumbelina's One Night Stand, or pick up my Featherlight Gibson hollow body and sing Pigs on the Wing. Now college looms on the horizon, and like that old feeling of the tough strings and unfamiliar body of my dad's guitar, a degree of uncertainty returns. But I know now that no matter how life changes, music will be with me, providing comfort, inspiration, and an unbreakable connection to my ideals. Because I can rely on music, I can rely on myself. So, some reactions. What made this a successful essay?
Alex，如果有人想要举手回答的话，你可以把它给解开。
好的，我应该
对，你应该让他们就是举个手，然后你让他们这样子回答，或者这样子，要不，嗯，
可以。
Yeah, that would be great too. If anyone wants to speak up, definitely welcome verbal feedback as well. Excellent. So very good comments. Yep, a few coming in. Yeah, so let's take a few of these. This is very good. Very good comments. First of all, he was frank and showed his true passion. Yes, and he had a passion to show. Step one of how to write a good college essay is to have something to write about. We can scroll down here. Takeaways. Number one, to have an essay, you must first have a life. So when does the writing of the college essay start? I've had people who write their college essays about things they started when they were 5, things they started when they were 9, 14 years old. Kids need time and space. To answer that question, yes, the essay is just that's the whole essay. It's about 650 words. The maximum is 650 words. That's the standard length of a college essay. Yeah, the writing of the essay starts with the living of the life. If kids don't have time and space to develop their passion, or passion is an overused word, but any kind of interest, anything apart from what they're assigned to do in school, following what someone else tells them to do, they're going to have more of a challenging time writing the essay. To have an essay, you must first have a life. But that said, it's more about the why than the what. In other words, almost everyone can find something, some what to write about. And as a few of you pointed out, what makes this a successful essay is that there's a very clear, very precise explanation of why music is meaningful and impactful on this writer's life. Anthony said it starts with music, but gets to the level of what shapes him as a person and always continues to carry an impact to the life. Exactly. It's not just, I played music, this is what happened, here's a story about me as a musician, I won some contests, and there you go. No, there's a very specific reasons why this is important. A connection to ideals, a connection in voice to ideals, communication with other people, a way to open up communication with other people and relate to the world, a way to understand the world, and a way to be confident because I can rely on music, I can rely on myself. So, very clear connection between the content, the what, and why this is the thing being written about. A thesis is what we call this sometimes, even if it's not directly in thesis form. Number 3, what we call image action interpretation. And this is really linked up with number 4, writing quality matters. And thank you, Sally mentioned this, it immerses you in the story. Jennifer said the writer described his experience in a very colorful and expressive manner. Yeah, it's an essay. Part of the purpose of a college essay is to show off your ability as a writer. This is somewhat overlooked. People get very hung up on, well, I've got to have a perfect story that shows off my traits as a leader. It's got to show how I'm collaborative. It's got to show something awesome that I've done. Well, you know what? It's also supposed to show off your abilities as a writer. And a really well-written essay that thinks about who you are and considers what your strengths and weaknesses are, how you've changed over time, what you've learned from certain experiences. Even if the story, the thing that you did is not that exceptional, not that incredible, if it's written in a compelling way with beautiful language and, real self-reflection, that can make up for it. Image, action, interpretation. This needs a little bit of explanation. This is a format that I often give to students. An image is like here at the beginning of the story, the kid is 13 years old playing guitar, right? Kind of like a movie. A good essay is a lot like a movie in many ways. You can see something. This is good writing. The audience is there. The reader is there with the writer. You see an image, and then action, something happens. The kid wants to emulate his musical heroes. He practices and practices and practices hours upon days upon weeks, works for 6 months to record an album. Image, action, and then interpretation. Why does that matter? That's what we talked about. We get a scene, something happens, and then it explicitly tells you why that was important or what that says about the writer's personality. Same thing here again. At the Sportsman's Tavern, the honkiest, tonkiest beer joint in town. There's an old man at the bar drinking a beer, smoking a cigarette, saying this is going to be embarrassing. And then the band just plays. They go through the anxiety, the scariness of it, get through original songs. Everyone stands up, cheers. That's the action. Then the interpretation. What did that give the writer? Self-confidence, a connection to other people, a voice for his ideals. Image, action, interpretation. 2 stories is all you need. 2 stories. One story that's kind of, the scene setter, the hook, draws people in, action, interpretation. Second story, maybe even fills in some of the backstory, gets into more details, explains a little bit more about, how this interest or how this passion developed over the writer's life. Third section, almost all interpretation. How was the writer transformed by this experience? So, takeaways. To have an essay, you must first have a life, but it's more about the why than the what. You can really find a way to write about pretty much anything, and people have found a way to write about pretty much anything, as long as you do it in a way that the writer is in the story. Image, action, interpretation. That's just good writing. That's good storytelling, and it's direct. It shows both thoughtfulness and writing quality. And 5th point, something very much to keep in mind, if you're taking notes here or taking your own takeaways from this presentation, the essay is not the whole story, because the writer of this essay was actually quite a successful musician. He had multiple albums published before graduating high school, was featured in news stories, in citywide newspapers, had played more than 100 concerts, quite a few accomplishments. Did the essay talk about that? No. Why not? Well, because the essay is not the whole story. There is a place on the application to talk about your resume points. You don't need to do it in the essay. In fact, it's kind of redundant, unnecessarily repetitive if you do so. If you want to show the awards, you want to show the concrete accomplishments, that goes in the activities section, the resume section. That's not what the essay is for. So don't worry about, the application reader, if I don't really put it in a prominent place in my essay, they're not going to see it. Whatever the accomplishment is, they are. They take the time with every section. So you don't need to try and cram everything into the essay. The essay is very specifically for the applicant showing that they know how to think about themselves and talk about themselves and write about themselves in an intelligent way. Any questions at this point? So that is what a strong college essay looks like. Just an example of what you're going to be aiming for, or the quality that you're going to be aiming for, the types of things that you or your kids are going to be aiming for. Before the next section is going to be how do you do that? How do you get a high school junior, rising senior to write an essay like that? I'm going to talk about how I do it with my students. We're going to look at a first draft and talk about how it got to a final draft. But before we get into that, does anyone have any questions at this point? Going once, going twice. Okay. So we're going to start with, will we be able to see the recording? Yes. The recording will be available. So we're going to start with a very current example. This is the first draft of an essay that was sent to me about a month ago, just about the beginning of July. This student sent me a first draft. And what I'm going to do is going to take you through the 3-week one-on-one tutoring process and show specifically how we got from this first draft to the final one, what some of the issues with the first draft are, and what the process was for getting to a really strong final draft. So I'm going to share this in the chat too. So that's in the chat now. Feel free to download it, read along either on the screen or on your PDF. By studying abroad in the United States, I'm leaving my beloved children behind in Taiwan. To see them double in size and develop stunning scales of blistering gold or mysterious black, I can only wish that whoever takes care of the fish tank in my school can have the same amount of passion for them as I do. 2 years ago, my calculus class celebrated the AP exams and with a pizza party. However, in the celebratory mood, I overheard 2 concerned seniors looking for someone to take care of the fish tank. The 300-liter behemoth, way larger and more significant than any tanks I've managed, ran on a 3 feet tall filter and delighted passing students between their dry classes. I instantly had a daring idea. Why don't I take care of the tank after the seniors leave? My obsession with fish started when I was 5 at an annual koi competition. I was curious about everything. Why did the fish keepers use this cylindrical equipment? How did they rid their fish of parasites? A few would always explain to me the craft of raising goldfish. I begged my parents to take me to this event, knowing that I could learn much every time I attend. Later, when I bought my first betta fish in 4th grade, the clerk claimed that that one only needs a liter of water and fish pellets to survive. However, a few web searches said otherwise. Using my allowance, I bought a 4-gallon tank, some dechlorinator, a filter, and 2 Java fern plants. It's just a fish, my parents insisted. We raised them in bowls and they lived. They didn't understand how much a healthy and decorated tank signifies. It is like artwork, a painting to immerse myself in. To me, there's no greater joy to see my betta thrive in his little world. With that in mind, I talked to seniors and later received permission from my school to manage the tanks in the following semester. Once the semester started, I found that I didn't have the necessary budget for needed upgrades. As a first-generation college student without much academic guidance, I've learned to seek assistance from others in tasks I couldn't accomplish alone. Consequently, I held a fundraiser selling fish-related accessories and reached out to the school for an increase in the budget. I also asked a few classmates with fish keeping experience to review my upgrading plans and help clean the filter quarterly. Using the funds I raised, I replaced the existing tank's aging filter and established another tank with equipment suitable for the growing fish. Watching the fish swim gracefully in both tanks, I was both satisfied with my efforts and grateful to those willing to help me accomplish the makeover. Some have questioned my choice to take over the tank. You are wasting time you can spend studying, they argued. However, having watched the seniors take care of them for 2 years, I couldn't bear to leave the fish to fend for themselves. Furthermore, passing by the tanks, I could occasionally see students of all ages observe, point, and smile at the fish's behavior. I feel a great sense of accomplishment seeing the fish swim lively and playfully under my care. I am honored to contribute to the community by caring for the fish and maintaining their environment, brightening students' day during the Stark school hours. This project's success encouraged me to learn more about aquatics. Fish keeping is currently one of my favorite hobbies. I keep a 6-gallon betta shrimp tank and a 60-gallon tropical tank with vibrant plants and active fish. My experience with managing the school tank taught me the importance of responsibility and collaboration, since maintaining the tank requires near constant effort. The task encouraged me to communicate my thoughts and allowed me to achieve something through collective effort which I couldn't have achieved as an individual. I may be unable to feed the fish daily once I graduate, but I will never forget my family that grew and thrived along me through my 4 years of high school. Once again, observations. It's a first draft. What are your thoughts? You can play college counselor or essay counselor for a while. We'll do a little role play. What are your impressions? It does have a nice hook. Story is written in a good manner where you're compelled to read the whole story, but it is kind of wordy. And remember, this was a first draft. I'll give away the fact that there's a lot of problems with this essay. So don't be afraid to point those out if you see them. Interesting to read about how much responsibility the author took on. Kind of plain, nothing jumped out to get my attention. Let's go back to our takeaways. So to have an essay, you must first have a life. Yeah, this kid has got interest. This kid is interested in fish. Going back to childhood, curiosity about fish. What about why? Did we get a why?
Ah,
Yeah, here is the core issue with this essay. And this is the reason why it kind of seems maybe a little bit plain, um, or, nothing, as was said, nothing to jump out to get my attention. Um, he could elaborate a little more on how he raised funds and how he balanced his academic study and this fish care activity. You all are too nice. I'll tell you. So let's go to the first meeting. So we go to brainstorming, and I have to be harsh. Sometimes you have to be harsh at the beginning. And first of all, I'll use a fake name for the student. We'll call the student Jimmy. First question was, Jimmy, or comment was, Jimmy, I have no idea why you care about these fish. Why are you telling me this story? What point are you trying to prove? What does this say about you? Because if the points, so I think a couple of you have identified what the writer is probably going for, right? Someone said responsibility, took on the responsibility of fish care in the school. Is that a lot of responsibility? Just to be honest, maybe it is, and I don't understand it. But, from someone who doesn't really know anything about taking care of fish, the stereotype kind of is fish just kind of take care of themselves, right? I mean, you sprinkle a little food in the tank, and then, that's it. You change the filter every now and then. And okay, he raised some funds to buy a new filter. Well, what does that cost? Like a couple $100? I mean, you're applying to top 10, top 20 colleges here, right? Like, again, not to be too harsh or too mean, but like, this is your case for who you are and, what type of person you're going to be in university, is that you are capable of taking care of fish and raising like $100, $200 of funds. And why were you doing it in the first place? So we get to the first class, and the student naturally, again, this is not like a judging or a blaming type of thing, asks all the wrong questions. Well, how do I show off the traits that colleges want to see? I think colleges want to see that I'm responsible and that I'm curious and that I've learned how to collaborate. And this essay is supposed to show how I learned how to collaborate because I needed to rely on classmates too to raise funds for fish care. This is the wrong question. What do colleges want to see? If you start by taking the attitude of how do I write an essay that they want to see, you've already failed because you're not doing the assignment. I'll repeat that again. If you take the attitude of how do I write something that the colleges want to see, you have already failed because you are not doing the assignment. What is the assignment? The assignment is to think deeply about who you are. And as I think the very first comment was, what was the very first thing? IK, thank you for this comment, has to be truthful. If you're starting to think about what a college wants, sure, maybe what you're writing, you can write something that's factually true, but you're not telling your truth. You're not telling the truth of who you are. At least that's not the attitude you're taking. So what we did, this was an hour-long session, and it was essentially me repeating again and again, yes, Jimmy, I know you have questions about the third paragraph, or I know you have questions about the language in the fifth paragraph, but why do you care about these fish? And Jimmy being like, well, I don't know, I just like kind of went to this fish thing, and yes, but why do you care about fish? Well, fish like, goldfish, they actually like need a very like specific type of care and a specific type of environment. And, the pH level in the water has to be right. And, you have to change the filter more than you think. And like, there's a lot that goes into the filter. Okay. But why do you care about fish? well, I went to this thing when I was a kid. I think like, I thought it was kind of interesting and like kind of cool and like I enjoy taking care of fish. Okay, but why do you want colleges to know you care about fish? And why do you care about fish? Are you sure you know why you care about fish? And the truth was, uh, he didn't yet. But what we did was forget about the college essay. Just forget about it because it gets in the way of the actual thinking that needs to happen. It's like, how do I write an essay that's 650 words and expresses like all these things that the college want and also tells the truth about me and like shows my passion? It's too hard. It's trying to do too many things at once. So that's step one. Forget the college essay, just talk. That's interesting. Why did you do that? Why did you get that betta fish? Why did you spend all that time researching? What did you do next? Why did you enjoy that? What was fun about that? What was interesting about that? Forget the college essay. Just have a conversation. The assignment after this first meeting was free writing. Forget the college essay and just write. To be honest, after reading this first draft, before we had our meeting, I was very much prepared to say, like, this isn't going to work. Like, find another topic. If all you've got is like you raised a $150 fundraiser for a fish, like we need to find something else to write about. But we talked for an hour, and I could see that Jimmy had actually quite a lot of knowledge about fish, and quite a lot of concern about fish. I mean, the things he was saying was like, well, actually, as soon as I took these over from the seniors, I realized the size of the tank was all wrong. They should be in a much larger container. So I started reaching out to fish dealers and like fish stores and seeing if they would take them. And I was like, well, could you release them into the wild in the water? Ignorant question for me. He's like, are you crazy? They would be invasive species. It would do terrible things to the ecology. He told me exactly what they would eat and exactly what the effect would be on the waterways and what type of fish they would prey on and like what predators would prey on them. And I was like, this kid really knows a lot about these fish. And I kind of like, tested him a little bit on like, well, is it really that hard to change a filter? And he starts getting into like all of the different chemical elements that are part of a filter and how they react and like the reaction between the different elements of the water and the elements of the filter. And I was like, there's something here. I was very ready to tell you to get rid of the fish topic, but like this is clearly something you care about. And there's more going on here. There's a lot more going on here than you've gotten in this first draft. So let's do a free write. Why don't you just write about your first experience with fish, or you write about some of your most memorable experience with fishes. Write about why you took over from the seniors. Write about what it was like to change a tank. Don't think about a college essay. Just write as long as it takes. Write 1,000 words, write 2,000 words. Go into vivid detail. Don't worry about topic sentences. Don't worry about thesis statements. Just write a letter to a friend. Write a letter to your future self about like why this is something you spent hundreds and hundreds of hours on in high school. And maybe we'll figure out what this is all about. That was step 2. Step 3, 4 days later, the freak out. So we're set to meet a week later. We have class scheduled for a week later after Jimmy writes the free writes. And I get all these WeChat messages on Friday, like repeating the same things from the meeting. Hey, yeah, but okay, I get like you want me to free write and like talk about my feelings and like my motivations and why I do things, but what did the college want to see? Can you read my draft again? Should I really just describe and reflect on my experience of keeping fish? What do you want me to do here? I didn't respond by text because I could sense that I could tell what was going on here. So I called him and I said, Jimmy, you've never had an assignment like this before, have you? He said, no. I said, it seems, my sense is that you are very used to assignments with very detailed guidelines. Like here are the specifications, fill out the specification, write this thesis statement, this number of paragraphs, this type of evidence, and here's the rubric, and just fulfill the requirements of the rubric and you'll get a good grade. And you probably haven't done any kind of writing before where all you have to do is just write what you feel like and write what you want and write what comes to your mind and think about what you were feeling. Is that true? And he said, yeah. And I was like, okay, so you understand the assignment, you understand what you got to do. I know it's unusual, maybe it's a little anxiety causing, a little bit scary, but sometimes the best thing to do is just try it, because no one has to see it. There's no grade, just write what you want to write. So we chatted along these lines for like 10-15 minutes, and he kind of calmed down by the end. And the next day he started writing. And we got to class on Monday, a few days later, and he had written 1,500 words, 1,500 words. And I liked a lot of what I saw. Some phrases start to jump out. He had written about the experience of changing a broken filter. Here was one line that I loved. My arms felt like lead and my entire body smelled like fish. Everything turned out as intended. It made me smile. What a beautiful contrast. Now that's interesting. It's good writing. That contrast is good writing. My arms felt like lead and my entire body smelled like fish. Everything turned out as intended. He wrote, I first placed ceramic rings inside the 3 vertical compartments of the filter. Those ceramic rings, little cylinders of 1 centimeter in all 3 dimensions, hollow in the middle, are to house nitrifying bacteria. I placed the sprayer at around 60% of the tank's height so that it ensured the clean water would not flow out before mixing with dirty water. I didn't place the sprayer too high either, because an overly long exposure of the pipe in the air can also cause air to flow into the filter. And given that tank's water does evaporate, 60% is my best bet. Let's role play again. You're the essay counselor, you're me in this situation. You've gotten this 1,500 word free write with, this kind of stuff in it. What are you starting to think about this student and the direction for this essay? What do you do? How do you approach this next meeting? And I say this, I'm going through this exercise because this is the type of thing you can do with your own kids. Comments are welcome. You get some of the content that I've showed you from the free write. What's your reaction? What does this tell you about this student? What does it make you think about the direction that this essay might take? Chat is open for comments. Clearly, they know a lot about the topic. Too wordy, too technical, informative, not reflective. Admissions officer would not be interested enough to read this. Very specific knowledge about fish tanks that we didn't see in the first draft. Makes him seem more knowledgeable and passionate. Yeah, exactly. The combination of these 4 comments totally gets it. So first of all, 650 word essay, right? You're not going to write all of these details in such a wordy way in the essay, but he knows a lot. And look at the way he's thinking. He's thinking about every little piece, the different components, the size of the components. Think of the way he's making decisions. 60% is my best bet, compensating for the fact that air can flow into the filter, compensating for evaporation. My impression was, hey, we'll get to that one. This sounds like an engineer. this guy sounds like someone who's thinking through problems in a technical way. We didn't get to this yet. So of course, and the other thing that stuck out to me, of course, I couldn't tell what they're thinking. Maybe they're curious about whatever is interesting about my arm, or they're irritated by the lack of a filter in their home, but at least I felt secure since the fish were still lively. In the end, I really hope that they will appreciate my work as much as I do. So, sounds like an engineer, quite technical, and humanizes the fish. Like there's some real care for the fish here, right? In the end, I really hope that they will appreciate my work as much as I do. Trying to get to this question again, this core question of like, why do you care about the fish? Something that's coming through in this free writing is, you know, Jimmy does have real feelings about these fish. Thinks about them in ways that most people don't think about fish. So what do we do in this meeting? 30 minutes talking about the themes and 30 minutes talking about computer programming. Why? Well, because I said that, hey, in this, you know, you really sound, the way you're thinking and the way you're describing your thought process, you really sound like an engineer. Do you have any experience in engineering or interest? And he just goes, I love computer programming. I've been computer programming since middle school. And I know I'm going to major in it. I think I asked him, are you going to be an engineering major? He said, I know I'm going to major in computer programming. I know you're supposed to like keep your options open and, you know, think about the fact that you might change, but I just know I'm going to be a programmer. We spent the second half of the meeting not even talking about the college essay. 30 minutes just talking about his journey, the first time he programmed a computer, how he went and found mentors for himself, and how he took online courses, the different programs he created, what it's like to debug a program, the different languages that he learned and the differences between them, and his opinions on like the way computer programming is taught. It's fascinating. Why? Well, one, because the essay needs to be true. We want an essay that reflects who the student really is. And two, remember point 5, the essay is only part of the story, right? The essay is only part of the story that the application tells. It's going to be different if there's an essay, you know, if this fish essay is written by someone who wants to study economics or political science versus someone who wants to go into engineering or computer science, right? Those are two different students. How does the essay fit into that story, right? It's as one piece of the overall application and one piece of the picture of who this kid is. Also, there are going to be supplements. There's going to be like, you know, why do you want computer programming essays as well. So it's good to just approach that in a natural way and start to get that background during this process, you know, and it's just, I mean, it's just nice. It builds rapport between the teacher and the student. You actually get to know each other and are able to communicate and be honest with each other by having these natural kinds of conversations. So we talk about these themes, you know, sounding like an engineer, caring more about the fish than most people do, and say, okay, continue your free writing, because Jimmy had written on one of the 3 free writing topics that I had assigned him. We said, we'll come back in like 3 days. So 3 days later, he comes back. Now he's really into this free writing thing. He loves free writing. He's really enjoying the process of, this is the first time he's had an assignment where he can just write whatever he wants and think about himself. He's written 4,300 words, all about his experience with fish from ages like 5 years old to now. So then we spend the next lesson analyzing these long pieces of writing, and we find 4 themes. 1, meticulousness, extreme attention to detail, order, process, making sure everything is in the right place, precision, caring deeply about quality, doing things right. one thing breaks, he could just fix one part of it, but he notices another part isn't broken, and not really that important, but he could still make it better in the fish tank, so he'll do it anyway. And he's fascinated by these systems like fish tanks or like computer programs that can look very simple and perfect and beautiful to the outside, a great user experience on an app or a website, or just, a beautifully composed fish tank that makes people smile when they walk by. But what he really likes about that is the fact that there are so many details, intricate parts of the ecosystem of the fish tank, hundreds or thousands of lines of code beneath that program. And it actually kind of gives him pleasure to know that he knows what's going on underneath, and he knows how difficult and complex and painstaking it is to get there, even though it looks simple and easy to everyone passing by. Curious about how things work and concerned about the welfare of living creatures. So this is where we get from that free writing exercise. Now we've got a ton of content, 4,300 words. That's a lot of content for a 650 word essay. But now it's just a question of finding the right content and copying and pasting it in the right order. And we've got the themes. So we've got the interpretation. We've got the what did he do? And we've got the why did he do it? Right? Through this process of free writing and free conversation, just getting to know each other and him really getting to know himself, we've got everything we need. Now it's just a question of cutting it down and putting it in the right order. So the approach during that class, we ranked the themes. We decided which ones kind of would make a nice hook, which ones would make a nice substance of the essay. We also read a couple sample essays during that time so he could better understand, what makes, how do you put these types of things in the right order? How do you write it in a compelling way? How do you tell a good story? And we created an outline. We created an outline with 3 parts. Each one had that form of image, action, interpretation. We decided, which theme we wanted to get across in each of those 3 sections. And it kind of looked like this. We made a little, this is paragraph 1. You can see here, there were 3 paragraphs. And for each paragraph, opening sentence, you could cut or paste some imagery or background, action, and then the interpretation down here times 3. We did this, 3. And so that was the homework, take this format, take this chart, sit down with your 4,000 words of free writing and cut and paste content into this chart in order to prove the points that you make in your themes, in order to show your main themes. Okay, so yeah, this was Thursday, a couple weeks ago. We come back in a week. Jimmy has done this now, and now it's time to take that outline, that kind of chart format, and put it into actual essay form. So we spend that class taking it out of the chart and actually making things fit together, rewriting topic sentences, conclusion sentences, working on the interpretation, tightening up language, making sure every point that we want to make is in the essay now. By the end of this lesson, it's still too long. It's 950 words, but it's in essay form. All the content and themes are there. Now it's just a question of cutting it down to style. And it's also a question of getting feedback from others. I always tell students that I'm working with, have your brother and sister read it, ask your parents to read it, get a favorite teacher at school, friends, anyone who knows you and is willing to read, go read it. We think we've got all the content and themes there. Now let's see if it really is honest. Let's see if it really is you and really does capture the best of you. Go ask some readers. So Jimmy asked his school guidance counselor. The guidance counselor gave some feedback. We got together again on Monday, just this week, a few days ago. We reviewed the feedback from the guidance counselor, and then we did the kind of line level revision. We cut it down from 950 to 640 words, cutting out a lot of that wordiness, a lot of that redundancy, making sure we're keeping that kind of image, action, interpretation, really getting to a tight Well, final draft, I'd say it's probably 99% there. It's always good to revisit it a few weeks later. The assignment, in fact, was go keep getting feedback, get some friends to read it, get more teachers to read it. But yeah, by this time, 3 weeks through the process, we're about 99 to 100% there. So here is what we end up with. And I'll put this into the chat too. Okay, so you can open up that PDF and follow along. Yeah, as the comment said, it's good to get tips from many people. Don't just, have one person read your essay. Have 3 people, 4 people. You don't need 20 people. That's a little too much, but 3, 4, 5 is a good number. And it's a mix of people who are good writers, like an essay counselor, school guidance counselor, English teacher, versus people who really know you and know whether you're being honest and showing yourself well, like a sibling or a parent or a friend. So here we are. 10 p.m. on a Saturday, sophomore year. I slouched on a sofa in my school student area. My arms felt like lead and my entire body smelled like fish. Everything had turned out as intended. Of course, I would have waited until Monday if I'd had the option, but I didn't. The filter is the most vital equipment in a tank. It minimizes the environmental hazards caused by fish excretion. Conveniently, the filter had started to leak 2 days ago, and the fish could have died if I hadn't replaced it in time. The deteriorating air pipes were less vital, but given that I was already fixing something, I'd rather finish all renovations at once. Each step is crucial and must be done in the proper order. 1 centimeter plastic O-ring into the valves to prevent leakage. Intake pipe at the tank's bottom for debris. Outflow at 60% of the tank's height to compensate for evaporation. I filled the filter with dechlorinated water, ceramic rings, and activated carbon. The rings house nitrifying bacteria, which I'd learned through the painful mistake of forgetting to install them. The water got cloudy due to the lack of bacteria digesting excessive waste. I stepped back and appreciated my work. 2 days from now, students would stroll by the tank and admire the crystal clear water and glistening fish. However, in my mind, the real beauty is what's hidden. Underneath the tidy exterior are layers of complexity that must be arranged perfectly for this seemingly simple system to exist. Even as a little child, I was eager to learn the mechanics under the surface. It all started at an annual koi competition near my house. Staring into the 5-foot-tall buckets where each koi was on display, I was first captivated by the fish's elegance. With shimmering gills of red, gold, and white, they swam gracefully under the sun. But it was 2 1-centimeter plastic pipes connected to a small cylinder behind the bucket that I couldn't shake from my mind. My next allowance turned into a betta fish in a tiny 1-liter tank, and I dove into betta care manuals. A 3-gallon tank with a heater during winter, dechlorinator, nitrifying bacteria, a filter, substrates, and plants, all vital to a healthy betta's environment. It is impossible for bettas to live in small containers without decorations, where prolonged periods of boredom are known to cause stress. 2 months later, an array of stones stretched from the edges of the tank to the center. Tiny plants covered the transparent glass on the far side of the tank. The betta swam vigorously in his new home, with flaring red gills that had never had in the pet store. The life of a fish may not seem like much, but in reality, they have needs. They respond to the level of care they are given and feel sentiments like happiness, sadness, and boredom. When I started computer programming in middle school, I began to see that this was true of machines as well. Tens of thousands of lines of code must be written, debugged, and optimized repeatedly for a program to function, just as every piece of equipment, chemical, and natural organism must be in balance to maintain a tank's health. The layers of perfectly arranged complexity are everywhere. These things we see as objects need careful attention and interaction, just as humans do. I started caring for my school's fish at the end of freshman year. One day, as I passed by the tank, I noticed that the goldfish swam over and bubbled at the surface. It was as if they somehow recognized me, and with a quick search, I found that they probably did. I couldn't tell whether the fish were anticipating that I would feed them like usual, give them fresh cold water, or whether they were simply curious what this human will do next. Reactions. What are your thoughts? Feel free to type into the chat if you have comments, observations, questions. Yeah, using fragments made it a lot quicker, right? Like instead of a long sentence for everything, just really snappy, like show the expertise, but move the essay along at the same time, keep up the pace. Yep, connect the dot to the major he's gonna pursue in college. Exactly. Why is this fish care relevant? In a direct message, it also has a lot more reflection and what the author notices, such as the complexity behind machines in a fish tank system. Yeah, it adds the why, it adds the interpretation. Why was he doing this? What does this show about his personality? Jennifer says there was so much personality shown, caring and empathetic towards the fish. You know, someone, yeah, an insight into the mind of a fish expert, which made him unique. Yes. So it's much less wordy. Somehow there's a lot more substance, a lot more content, even though it's shorter. I'll point out a few things as well that I think maybe come through. So I think this is a nice hook. This was from the free write, right? Everything, my arms felt like lead and my entire body smelled like fish. Everything had turned out as intended. The admissions officer is going to keep reading. You know, that's nice writing. The deteriorating air pipes were less vital, but given that I was already fixing something, I'd rather finish all renovations at once. That does say something about the personality. This comes back to the attention to quality, right? It's not just, oh, I have to go into school on Saturday and fix this fish tank that I have responsibility for. It's like, well, I'm here. I might as well do it as well as I can. I'm going to go above and beyond the minimum and just renovate everything at once. This line is interpretation. Every step is crucial and must be done in the proper order. That's an attitude I hope that many of our engineers have, right? Very crucial for that type of future. Attention to the scientific detail gets across quickly, but you get the message that this kid knows what he's talking about. Clear, direct explanation. In my mind, the real beauty is what's hidden. Underneath the tidy exterior are layers of complexity that must be arranged perfectly for this seemingly simple system to exist. So that's the first story. We get the attention to detail, under the surface, systems thinker, care for quality. Second question here, intellectual curiosity, happens from a young age, and the caring, right? Caring about whether this fish is bored or stressed, and then going and doing something about it, right? This is a doer, you know, who as a kid goes out and researches and buys all these things to make the fish happy. Connection, as many of you pointed out, to computer programming. And again, doesn't really need to say more than that. all the other stuff about computer programming is going to get through on the activities list, the resume. There will probably be a supplemental essay about why are you going into computer programming. It'll all fit together. It's one piece. But what we really see in this essay is the student's writing ability and who they are. Thank you very much. I welcome any questions. I put Bella's WeChat here up on the last slide. She can talk about ways to connect. I am available, and Ivy Way also has other essay counselors available for group classes, one-on-one tutoring, and both in essay counseling, school subjects, test prep, full service, pretty much any type of educational service you need for a middle school or high school student. We do it. With your email. You can contact, here, I'll put it here in the chat, contact@ivyway.com. You reach out to them. Alex's email, alex@ivyway.com, and I'm sam@ivyway.com. Any of these emails you can get through to me. This is what I do. I love working, particularly with one-on-one students. It's fun. You really get to know people, and you get to put together beautiful pieces of writing like this. So thank you, everyone. If anyone has any questions before I turn it back over to Alex and Bella, feel free to put it in the chat.
Thank you, Sam. Bella， 你的那个麦克风现在是开着，对吧？
OK，对对对，大家如果有问题，现在可以问问题。对，有什么问题可以问，也可以就是之后联系我，扫我这个微信二维码加我，然后跟我联系。
Bella，可以麻烦您把您的那个邮箱打在 chat 里面吗？可以用那个为主要的联系方式。
对对对，好的好的。你把那个就是如果有人想问问题，可以举手，对，问一下问题。
So I'll take the first question. I got one question by direct message. The question is, can an essay be too personal? I think I know what the question is getting at. I wouldn't say the essay can be too personal, but there are directions that you don't want to go. I'll actually give you an example from part of the free writing for this essay. Let me just, I'll open it up here for, I can, or this is not opening quickly enough. I'll summarize it. Basically, in one of the free writings, this writer had said, why did I care about the fish? Maybe it was because, it was nice to be able to interact with living beings who I could just, share my personality with. And, sometimes I'm shy, and it was like a no pressure way to kind of, be around living creatures. And it was like they were like my kids, and maybe it just sounds weird, but I'm friends with the fish, that kind of thing. And I said, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I was really glad that the student felt comfortable enough bringing that up in the free writing conversation and talking about that. However, that is not a direction to go for a college essay. Things like, I have trouble connecting with other people, so the fish were an outlet. Not something you want to highlight, right? You don't want to highlight anything that sounds like you're going to have trouble with social life or with mental health in college. There's nothing wrong with that happening. A lot of people go through it, and it's actually an important part of growing up. But it's just not something to highlight in your college essay. So what I told the student, Jimmy, or we'll call him Jimmy, was, you know, it's great that you put that in a free write, and it's great that you had a chance to reflect on that and know that about yourself. But now, once we've got the content and you've gone through this exercise, now we can start thinking about what is appealing in a college essay. You don't start from that. You don't start by saying, like, here's what colleges want, how do I give them that? But you write your free write first, and then you say, well, which parts of this free write will actually be a strong essay, and which ones are, as you might say, too personal or too much about your own emotions or your insecurities or your anxieties, rather than something that you want a college to know about you. Next question. Where can I find the recording to this Zoom? I'll let Bella and Alex take that.
Doesn't matter。就是那个 Alex，你让他们把这个麦打开吧，这样子可能会清晰一点。
好啊，
直接提问这样说也行。对，如果大家想提问的话，直接把自己的那个麦打开，然后举手一下。
Sure. So in addition to sending the text messages, feel free to speak up. That might be easier to talk. You can raise your hand and I will enable your mic and maybe your camera if you're okay with being on camera and say hi to Sam. And that way you can ask questions better.
Yes. Next question. Oh, we have a hand raised here. Alex, I think you're the host, so you can enable the microphone.
Yep.
Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello. So my question, I just typed it in chat, but I could just say it like, can your college essay still be about a hobby that is directly correlated with school? Like my personality is really correlated with like debate and Model UN and public speaking, but that like seems really educational to me. And I'm not sure if that would be good for a college essay.
Hi, yeah, thank you very much for your question, Jennifer. And the answer is yes. There have been many, many very good essays about things that are correlated with school. Debate, newspaper, Model UN, clubs that you do. What I would recommend is in your process, start thinking back about the early days of why you signed up for that in the first place. Why did that particular club, whatever it is that you feel is meaningful to you, why did that attract you as opposed to some of the other options for activities? What did you think about when you participated in that club? What did you learn through that club? How has that club changed you? It's a great topic, as long as you get to the why. As long as you get to the interpretation, you can list your achievements in that club on your resume, on your activities list. The essay itself should be, how is participating in this club a piece of who you are? And what does it say about what you're going to do when you're in college? Okay.
And we have
Yes.
another hand from Yuan or Yuan.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can
Yep.
hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your sharing. I'm a parent, so my son, my firstborn, he's going to be a junior this coming fall. So my question is, when should the student they start to think about, preparing for this like application essay, in terms of like topic or what they want to say, what they want to write, and then just start to kind of like prepare for the whole thing?
Like depending on when the school year ends, like end of June, early July of next summer.
Okay.
Summer before senior year.
Summer before. Okay.
Yeah, like wait until exams are over, APs are over, exams are over. Don't, they don't need to be thinking about this before exams and APs.
Okay.
They've got enough on their mind. Let them
Yeah.
get through that. Take like
Mhm.
a week or two to unwind and like, have a little brain break. And
Okay.
then, a couple weeks into summer before senior year, that's when they can start thinking about the essays.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your question.
But also
Um,
as a reminder about writing college essays, even though the summer going into your senior year is about probably the time to start actually writing that essay, the student wouldn't have, say, the story to write about the fish if he starts taking care about the fish at that moment. So the essay writing process can be a two-step process where first, like Sam said earlier, students have to have a life. And then as the student is having a life and do different things in high school, along the way, he starts thinking about colleges. And during the summer, that can be the time that he actually writes his thoughts down into words.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, that's a great
Mhm.
addition. Does the essay have to connect to your intended major? Short answer, no. It doesn't necessarily. Especially a lot of students don't. I mean, a lot go in undecided. A lot, maybe you have a feeling more you're like engineering or more humanities. But short answer, no. There are other essays on the application for almost every school that will ask you, why do you want to choose this major? So there's a different separate essay for that question. This is more about kind of the deeper core personality things. Like, this student who wrote the fish essay, who I shared, cares about, detail oriented, quality obsessed. There might be other people who want to write about how they love seeing the big picture, and they love, making connections between, like, finding connections between, like, the neuroscience of an octopus and, like, building techniques in Sumeria, interdisciplinary stuff. They might write about their imagination. They might write about expressing themselves through poetry. It doesn't have to connect to your intended major. It's more about what gives you confidence, how do you think, and what type of approach to learning, and being a classmate and a student. What do you bring to the table in that sense? The main essay is 650 word limit only. Yeah, well, they have to read a lot of them. A lot of these schools get more than 30,000 applications. Each admissions counselor is going to admissions officer is going to be reading 1,500, 2,000 applications per year. So I'm sure a lot of them actually wish that it were less than 650. But yeah, it forces you to be concise. Let's see. What else do we have here? Is it more important?
Question about from Vivian. Are there any suggestions for swim topic? She swims for many years.
Yes, do a free write. This is kind of an example of the first brainstorming, like first class question that I get. People will come in and say, I mean, in this case, well, I take care of fish. I want to write about fish. What should I write about? And the answer is nobody can tell you that. The whole purpose of the assignment is for you to think about why you care about swimming or why you care about fish. What drew you to that? What led you to continue competing in that and getting better at that, and why you think you excelled at that? I would start there. Again, go to a free write, or if you don't, some people think just through like walking and thinking. Like free writing is good because it kind of like forces you to get your thoughts on the page. But you can also just sit or go for a walk and start to think about those questions. If you ask someone else, like, what's a good way to write about swimming? what you're doing is avoiding the assignment. The assignment is for you to answer that question. Someone else can look at what you've written and say, that's interesting, tell me more about that. Let's have a conversation about that. Let's delve deeper into that. Or which parts of these, when you do your initial reflection on your own, would make for a good college essay. But suggestions for a good topic about swimming, that comes from the student. Let's see, did I miss anything? Is one-on-one class for middle schoolers? How will you coach the young age to develop writing skills for the long run? The best way to develop good writing skills is to start with good reading skills. Read a lot, read books that inspire the student. I have had so many tragic cases of middle school students who loved reading in elementary and middle school, and then throughout high school, they were assigned books that they didn't like, and decided that they didn't enjoy reading, and as a result got worse as writers, because musicians get better at music by listening to musicians they love. Athletes study other great athletes. Writers develop those skills through reading. So find books that the middle schooler actually enjoys and has fun reading, and let them do writing that they enjoy too. Creative writing assignments, analytical writing assignments, opinion writing assignments, and get level appropriate feedback for that over time. I'm working with a student, we just finished working on her application essay. I've been working with a student since she was in 8th grade. And it is absolutely incredible to see how she has progressed over time and how the threads have come together. Start with lots of reading, listen to the student, design something, customize, personalize something that works for them. Because kids take in information like sponges when it's available to them. But when you try and tell them exactly what they need to do and what they need to learn, that's when it starts to be, a dry sponge, not taking it in so much. Do we have time for more questions? I think there's a few more. Do you provide general essay tutoring besides college essays? Yes, I provide totally open-ended tutoring. Like if you just come and say to me, I want to be a better writer, I want to get better at analytical writing, creative writing, I provide that. If you need a tutor for AP US history, AP language and comp, AP literature and comp, like school essays, how do I get better on my school essays? Yes, I tutor students in competitions, John Locke competition, ISSCY Research Journal, Concord Review, and how to get in touch with you on that. Through the emails that I put in the chat. Yeah, so, or tomorrow at gmail.com, contact@idoway.com, reach out to them, and we can be in touch.
Sam, can you talk a little bit about the student about what the John Locke competition is and how you help that student?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, this student, this particular student I know who you're talking about has now become a finalist for 2 years in a row. So the John Locke competition is run by Cambridge University in the UK. John Locke was a very influential political philosopher whose ideas influenced a lot of the principles that are in modern legal systems, a lot of the principles that went into the founding of the United States. So this essay competition is named after John Locke because it goes into the kind of the really deep philosophical questions of the day. I think some of the questions this year, what did he write about? What, if anything, do rich countries owe poor countries? Were the lockdowns worth it? is there such thing as a common good? Should there be laws against self-harm? Political questions, economic questions, philosophical questions. 2,000 word limit, competitors from all over the world. If you get chosen as finalists, the winner gets some scholarship money. Finalists get invited to the UK for the final round. And yeah, this kid in particular has won an invitation to the UK for the junior competition, which goes up to 8th grade. It's middle school only. And then this year, just as a freshman, I also became a finalist for the high school competition. The results are not out yet. We're fingers crossed that he gets the prize this year, but we're very happy that as a freshman competing against seniors, he's already been chosen as a finalist. So that's awesome. What else? Did I miss anything? Let me look back through these questions.
还有要提问的吗？家长可以提问。对。
哦，如果家长有问题想用中文问也可以 ，Sam 可能也可以用中文回答，或者是他用英文回答，然后我跟 Bella 再用中文跟大家解释也可以。Sam, there is a question earlier from Jennifer. She asked, is it more important to have an impressive resume or have a more traditional route with good grades, SAT, essay, etc.?
Is it more important? Grades and academics are first. You know, to be basically clear. There's 3 big areas. This gets more into like the general, away from the essay a little bit, into like general college counseling. So there's 3 big areas in which you're scored. One is academics, one is extracurricular activities, and one is personal qualities. Academics is first. So your strength of schedule, like did you take APs, did you take challenging courses, did you get good grades in those courses? A lot of colleges are foregoing the SAT now or making it optional. But yeah, I mean, strong grades are fundamental. You know, colleges they say they look at applications holistically, right? They look at who you are as a complete person. But the most, I mean, the 30-second to 1 minute answer to that question is, yeah, academics are still the most fundamental part of an application. Alex, you might want to add, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. This is more your field.
Yeah, so to reply to Jennifer's question, it's the way that Jennifer phrases her question can be a little bit hard to answer directly, because she asked, so Jennifer, you're basically comparing resume with good grades, SAT, essay, and so on, but they're all actually interconnected in some way. If you do have a resume, some colleges ask for resume. On your resume, you will have your grades and SAT on it. You will write about the things that you are doing in high school, which may be part of your essay, which may be part of your activities list. So they're all actually interconnected from one to another. So what Sam mentioned about the application being holistic is that there are things that you're doing in high school. There are also things that are out of your control, like your ethnicity being Asians, your gender being male or female, your the environments or the background, the family that you're brought up from, your religion. There are so many things that colleges look at, and it's everything put together. So so in fact I would classify resume be in the same category as the grades, SAT and essay, because it's hard to really isolate one item from all the other aspects. But if we are talking about, yeah, it's so hard to like separate them. I would say resume and the essay are the things that you present at the very end, and that's very important. But what you write in the resume, as in the activities or the accomplishments that you have from the things you put in your resume, and the story behind that essay, those are important. So that's the process. So on one hand, it's important to have good grades, definitely, but also the story behind getting that good grade can be more important. So as an example, colleges care about how you get that good grades. And so if your good grades comes solely from taking a lot of tutoring classes after school, having a babysitter or tutor look over your shoulders and help you with every subject, and that's how you get an A, then that A is less impressive than someone else who like self-studies and get A or A minus, because even though number-wise that A score is higher than the other student by a little bit, that process of showing self-knowledge, the ability to self-learn a topic, the lack of an extra, having like all-day tutors on weekends or every evening just to get that good grade, that process does play a factor. In fact, a pretty big factor in the application process too. We can, and in the previous presentation that I did with Bella, I've also talked a little bit about that, and I can definitely talk more if people are interested on the application process. We can have other meetings in the future to talk about it.
OK，现在红姐有一个问题。
有。
红姐，你给她打。
Hi, can you hear
Hello.
me?
Yes.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. I have a question. Not directly related to IC, but I would like to ask a question regarding that. To get a recommendation letter from the school counselor or teacher. And so we know this, the IC is very important for you college application, but the recommendation letter from the school, that's also important too. And so my question is, when student write her IC, that's needed to show the college about her personality and her character. Just like example, she participated something, and so you need to let them know why you want to do this and what you learned from that and what you can contribute to in the future to the college. So when they provide this information to the school teacher or counselor to write a recommendation for her, does she also need to provide this kind of information, or just let teacher know what she did in her past? Or she also needed to let the counselor know what she learned from that and what she will contribute to the school, to the college? That's my question.
Since this is not specifically on the essay, I'll let Bella and Alex take this one.
Okay, thank you.
So the question is about how are you saying it's the essay competition and then the recommendation?
No. Can I speak in Chinese?
Yeah, of course.
OK， 就是说，如果是学生自己写 essay 的时候，就是说他要通过一件事情，就是要表现出来，把他自己呈现给这个招生官，就是说他需要通过他写出来的一件事例，表明他为什么要干这个事情，就是说他的 motivation， 他的 passion 是什么，然后就说通过这个事情他学到了什么，或者是这个事情影响了他什么，和以后他怎么能够 把这个经验或者是他学到的东西带到学校去，继续 contribute 给这个 college 这个 community， 这是他在 IC 里应该写出来的。但是我现在问的就是说，如果他需要把他的一些个 information 提供给学校的老师去帮助他写 recommendation letter， 就是说他只是把他需要干的事情告诉老师，还是说他也需要把就是说他在 IC 里写出来的这些东西，就是说有关他自己他的 personality 也要写出来嘛？就是说一般他们高中叫 brag sheet， 就是说在这个 brag sheet 上他只是写出来他干了什么，还是说需要把他自己也要他的 personality 写出来？
了解 ，OK， 这其实 OK， 这个答案可能有
IC 里写的内容肯定是不能写在 personality 里，肯定是要把你在社会活动里做的事情的一些亮点写出来，肯定要是这么做的。你不能把比如说你照顾了一个宠物，或者养了一只金鱼，你写在那个就是你说的那个就是简介，就是简介里，这个是不能。对，给老师的那个东西里。
像刚刚 Sam 在分享的那一篇大学作文，学生的那篇大学作文，那篇主要是讲学生喜欢学校的那一只金鱼，然后照顾他，对那一只金鱼特别有感触，然后想要花额外的时间去照顾那一只金鱼的这个故事。那这个故事如果说跟他的比如说数学老师或者是 computer science 老师讲，然后那这个故事好像不太能够让老师在老师的推荐信里面写说这个学生很喜欢这个金密学生很喜欢金鱼，好像会跟老师要写的推荐信的内容没有关系。所以那个 brag sheet 如果是 like 最初阶的那个建议就是写学生在那个班上老师可以写为什么这个学生很优秀的那些重点。那如果要再更细的话，它甚至包含在学期开始，如果学生现在还不是12年级的话，现在是升11或10或9或者更低年级，学生如何在开学的时候，上课的第一天就开始跟老师保持好关系，然后上课的过程该如何表现，然后到最后也不是只是把那个 brag sheet 给老师，而是如何跟老师沟通，要那一封推荐信什么时候要，然后那个 brag sheet 里面具体要怎么去写，这些其实全部都是升学的一些小细节，是学生要去注意的。那这个部分我们如果说有机会找 Sam 或是我或是那个我们这边其他的那些顾问的话，像是 Bonnie 的话，那我们也会在这个过程当中跟学生每个时候说需要具体要做什么，这样在那个升学的这些部分才可以把它做得更完美。
对，就是我的感觉就是老师肯定是就像 Alex 说的那种，他对你在上课和在学校之中的感受，而不是说你具体做了什么这种细节的东西，这个是两个方向。
对，因为我自己在网上也 search 了一些，就是说这个 recommendation letter， 你找的老师给你写，他主要是 focus 在你的 academic 方面和你的就是说你以后的在大学的你准备修什么的 major 的这方面，但是 school counselor 他会 focus 在你这个学生的，就是说你学生的 personal growth 或者是你的 personality， 你的character 这方面，所以就说老师那面呢比较明确，就像刚才 Alex 讲的一样，把你的这个细节会跟老师讲，他给你写出来。但是就是说对于 counselor， 如果他来给你讲一个你 overall 这个学生的通过在高中这前3年的你有什么自我的提高，自己的发展，所以这些个就是需要你告诉他一些个比较细节的东西，是吧？
对的，就是那个 personality 不是有可能也不是今天说一说你要怎么样注意，然后他就会实际上就会 develop 那一个 personality， 他会需要一点时间跟学生培养一个好的关系，然后像刚刚 Sam 有讲到说让顾问了解这个学生， 那知道这个学生的兴趣不是只是喜欢金鱼，而是喜欢 computer science 或者喜欢哪些方面的，然后未来的主修、未来的找的职业工作是哪个方向，那这些信息都可以帮助我们在辅导学生的时候，跟他讲要专注在哪些 personality 上面，然后以及到时候跟老师请教这个推荐信的时候，该如何的去要。然后像是里面有没有要 focus 在 personality， 还是要 focus 在学生上课的表现，这些每个学生的状况会不一样，所以比较难就是笼统的去给大家一个建议。
OK，那就是说我的小孩现在已经到了开始要找老师写的这个时候了。那就是说，现在他能做的就是说，他必须要和老师约到一个时间，亲自去跟老师讲，把他的 story 讲给老师，然后跟老师讲，我希望就是说能在这方面突出我，是不是应该这样做？
类似这样吧，但我说的一些小细节的意思就是，如果说跟老师特别约了个时间，老师抽空，然后愿意听这个学生讲话，然后学生讲了半个小时的废话，是老师，对老师写推荐信也没有什么帮助的，那这个好像还有可能会造成反效果，所以除了跟老师有更多的接触以外，要如何的去发这个接触的请求。比较有礼貌，然后让老师愿意很乐意的去跟学生沟通，然后在交流的过程当中要用哪些，可以把它叫做话术，或者是要说哪些重点，让老师觉得这一次的 meeting 是很有帮助的，然后可以让老师确实的写更好的推荐信，这些都是蛮多的一些该注意的小细节。
Yeah.
基
Stand
本上
in. Oh, sorry. Just stand in the teacher.
sorry.
Like Alex is saying, stand in the teacher's shoes for a moment. High school teachers got dozens to hundreds of students. They're not getting paid extra for that half hour that they're going to spend with the student, just like rattling off a brag sheet, right? They're with the student in class every day of the week. They know what they want to say. So don't overdo it because it might actually backfire.
OK, thank you so much. Thank you for that very good advice.
我们可以在下面对，就是具体你要让老师提供什么，我们到时候再让那个 Sam 或者 Alex 给你做一个指导，因为你肯定是要老师自己会非常的有想法，怎么评价你的小孩，比如说，你非常的有自信呐、对老师非常有礼貌呀，很有创造力啊，有这些东西，他肯定是对那些，比如说你的故事这种东西。就说不一定会写在就是他的推荐信里。
好了，好，明白了，谢谢。
Thanks for your question.
Thank you。还有任何的 questions 吗？就是大家如果是因为我们的 Sam 跟 Alex 这块，我们就是在文书这块会提供很多的帮助。那么大学申请，还有是说，如果你未来对写作，比如说低年级的。小朋友对写作有一些需求，我们也会找我们，那么我们也会有这种写作方面的一些帮助，会有一些课给到您。所以说，如果你有需求的话，也可以跟我们联系。还有任何问题吗？哦，有问题。
Hi Jennifer。
有一个就是 F 有一个问题，举手。
Hello. So I was like talking with like a counselor over the summer, and she was like talking about how different colleges like have different essay prompts and like certain times that they release them. And she said that like at the beginning of her school year, the teacher gave this opportunity where they just had to sit down and write their essay at the beginning of their year for like their college applications. And I was just wondering, first, is that like a good idea to do? And second, how early should I start writing the essay? Like as soon as the prompt comes out, or like once I'm done with schoolwork and I can focus on it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the first half of that again? I was responding via the chat to another direct message. Sorry, can you repeat that?
I think I forgot. Well, let me think for a minute.
Jennifer, I think you asked something about a counselor. So there's a event where students get together and like kind of like free write together.
Oh yeah. So like she said that like at the beginning of her school year, the teacher had this assignment where he told the students to just start writing their college essays because it was like a good opportunity for like them to sit down and actually focus on it.
And the question is that a good idea, or should you do that? Or
Yeah, like is it a good idea to like just like I don't know, for like you to like start your essay during the school year instead of like over the summer?
like at the beginning of junior year or the beginning of senior year? Some people wait until the beginning of senior year. I don't recommend it because then you're going to have a lot of other classes going on. I do recommend starting the summer before senior year. In terms of doing it earlier than that, writing personal reflection is always a good idea. Journaling is a great idea. Once or twice a year, just like, I mean, I still do this. I still every year on January 1st, I send several hundred of my friends and family an annual letter that reflects on my year. You know, what I was expecting, what happened, what I'm expecting to do next year, what I learned this year. It's a great practice. And actually, a student I mentioned earlier, who just finished up her personal statement, actually ended up using some content from a personal reflection that she wrote in 9th grade or 10th grade. And it ended up making it into her college essay 2 years later. So yeah, it's never a bad idea to personally reflect. You don't need to necessarily think like, I need to make this 650 words and I need to think about like how the colleges are going to think about this. But if you just want to use those prompts as creative writing prompts, sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I forgot my second question.
Jennifer, your second question was
True.
the prompts come out a little bit later or throughout at different moments, and should do we recommend you to start writing the different essays ahead of time, like right now, right?
Yeah.
The Common App prompts come out pretty early. Start on that. That's the big one. It can be adapted to UCs. It can be adapted to UW, UT. So start on that. You know, those prompts have been the same for quite a while with like a little variation. And there's also the, you know, write whatever you want prompt. So start on the big one first. And then when there are more specific questions, like tackle those next.
Mm.
So I just
Okay.
shared the link to Common App essay prompts. That is, in fact, for this coming application season. So you can start on those. But if you are a rising junior or below, you can still use this this page with the 7 different essay prompts and start writing college essays. College essays are always about your background, and that could be where you come from, broadly defined for really anything. So it could be your ethnicity, it could be your country, it could be your hometown, it could be the neighborhood, it could be your family, it could be the school or the neighborhood that you grew up in. So one essay about where you come from, about what made you become who you are today. Other essay prompts are about your past experience, your life experiences, and that could be your biggest success in life, your biggest success or accomplishment, your most memorable experience, your biggest failure, and the things that you learn from that experience. So start writing those, and ultimately you will be using at least one of these different prompts in at least one of the essays you're applying to.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jennifer.
趁着很多家长还在，我再说几句啊，就是，其实很多家长经常会问，哦，你们每年送了多少学生去艾薇的这种就是说藤校？实际上呢，就是说孩子能不能去藤校，取决于这个你的孩子所有的这个高中4年的一个准备。所以说，你越早找我们，越早规划。比如说从你的整个学业、GPA，包括你选课到你的社会活动如何规划。现在我们这些包括最后11年级的文书都是至关重要的。如果你比如说11年级再来找我们，那么我们可能只能是在essay 这个方面，或者是你的所有的这个申请表上帮你做一些工作。那么整个的这个社会活动这几年，可能这个时间都过去了。所以呢，我们现在收的最小的学生可能有从8年级就可以跟我们的顾问了。今天我们收到了一个电话，就是6年级的学生家长也想跟发了我们的顾问往前走。那么就是说，而且现在很多的这几年的藤校的录取，对于中国学生的要求呢，就是感觉好像是中国的学生录取的，还没有那么理想。实际上并不是说OK 藤校的改变了策略，然后他们就是变了或者怎么样，其实不是，他们一直都没有变，只不过是你一直在关注于学业，或者是说你只是把学习提升，但是你并没有关注你的社会活动。比如说我们的社会活动可以帮你做的非常精彩。比如说创建你的 club 呀，创建你的网站呀、app 呀这些，或者是凸显你的个性的东西，说这些东西我们的顾问都可以帮你走。包括我们就是有一整套的这个全方位的服务，就是说所有的家长就是说要考虑你培养孩子往精英那条路上去走的时候，要考虑就是你不仅是受学业和你的就是说整个学术方面有很大的一个提升要注意，那么你的社会活动也要就是有一个非常大的提升才可以。那么我们的就是说包括 Sam 包括 Alex 这块都可以在，比如说包括你的不仅仅是帮你送去一个非常好的大学是目标，那我培养你整个的性格，塑造成藤校需要的那种人才，也是他们比较擅长的。所以如果你比较感兴趣的话，就可以联系我们我们可以做一个给你的学生做一个免费的一个 talk， 然后免费的一个就是面试了解一下你的小孩，然后可以看一下我们怎么规划你的孩子，可以更好的把你的孩子推向就是他非常理想的学校。最重要的是说把他培养成一个非常就是说这个精英的人才，无论是说在大学还是未来的人生路上，都能走出非常辉煌的道路。OK， 那 Alex 你要有什么补充的，你可以再说几句。
Yes, and I actually need to sign out at 10:30. Thank you everyone so much for coming and your great questions. Thank you, Bella and Alex, for inviting me.
Thank you, Sam.
Please.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. And I want to say congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And feel free to reach out to Bella if you want to get in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Good night. Bye bye.
刚刚那个Bella 讲到说那个关于学生何时加入的，就是有辅导这件事情。我其实就是从这不是从机构的角度去讲这件事，是从就是我知道这个整个过程，然后从想象有一天如果我是家长的角度去做这件事，就是我觉得辅导这件事应该是要越早做越好，然后越早做包含如果小孩现在是即使还在读幼儿园，还在读1年级2年级，也是可以开始规划的一件事。那我来解释一下为什么，就是我们今年有一个学生，他是在年初的时候找我们，他是在德州的一个小孩，然后他爸爸找我那时候他小孩还没满6岁，那爸爸的意思就是他觉得他小孩有天生的一些资质，然后他爸爸想要让他小孩以后能够经营藤校，然后能够成为一个很成功的一个人。那我们就从 他5岁6岁这个时候开始规划。那我们发现这个小孩他有天生的一些学习上面的资质，他即使才6岁，但是他是有自制力，然后是有自学能力的，而且他的数学头脑是不用教他就可以自己领悟到小数点，领悟到分数，领悟到复数，然后给他一个那个 function， 不知道 function 叫什么中文。函数吗？还是好像函数？他可以自己看着题目，他就能够知道那个题怎么算。那这个学生如果他在5、6岁就发现他的学习能力在某些方面比较超前的话，那他可以准备的、可以努力的时间就是从1年级到12年级这11年多的时间。然后再加上他本来的这个资质，我蛮相信他有这么长的时间往正确的方向去准备。到11、12年级的时候，应该是我觉得应该是至少有2、3所藤校可以上吧。那但是如果这件事情是等到11、12年级才做规划的话，当然12年级也可以找我们来做 essay， 找 Sam， 找我做 essay。只是我们到后面来做 essay 的时候，如果学生过去是什么东西都没有的，那课内的成绩也一般般，课外的表现也没有什么表现，平常都是跟朋友出去玩，然后上网看视频，然后打游戏。那我们好像就很难写他有什么 big accomplishment， 或者是有哪些未来的一些梦想，这些东西就比较难在文字上去呈现。当然也还是有一点方法，但是如果事先学生肚子里面是有一些东西的话，那我们能够发挥的那个亮度会再更大。所以7、8年级开始是一个学生有还算是蛮足够的时间可以去做一个比较长期的规划，也包含Sam 跟我之前也都有讲到，学生的 personality 非常重要，这个也是亚洲学生在申请名校的时候最大的吃亏的一个点。这个大家如果有机会看到哈佛大学最近几年之前跟一个申请哈佛大学的学生有一个法庭上的一个官司，就是在讲说觉得名校都是在歧视亚洲人。那哈佛的观点就是说他们没有歧视亚洲人，他们的评估是很全面性的、很公平的。然后在这些亚洲人在他们的个性上面确实是不如很多白人、黑人上面的优秀。那这个地方也就是大部分华人的一个 Asian student 的一个缺陷跟致命伤。那这个 personality 并不是花个2个月学生就可以从懒惰变成很主动，从个性比较懒散变得自己有一些想法，这个不是短时间能够去做改变的。所以如果有长时间的规划的话，确实会比较好。甚至如果说mindset 是觉得说要规划个跟顾问约个1次，或是约个1个月的话，那我觉得这个1次或1个月宁愿是现在最一开始的时候，让学生跟家长对未来这段时间有一个正确的想法，然后后面自己做。这样的做法会比前面先全部自己去盲目的去尝试去做，然后最后再来找我们来得好很多。这个家长也可以到时候想一下。
对，其实现在好的大学，它对于学生就是像我们的 Alex 还有 Sam 都是毕业于哈佛大学。那么 Harvard 它对于就是我感觉是因为2019年我们有一个学生去了 Harvard， 我就看他的很多的东西的时候，我就非常有感悟。他就是用简单的一句话说，就是情商跟智商双高的一个人才。比如说他的智商，那他所有的 SAT、ACT 都是1636满分，然后 GPA 是4.4或者4.2、4.4左右，也都是非常高的 GPA。AP 课有一大把。那么他社会活动的也非常非常的多，比如说童子军、Eagle Scout 最高等级，学生会的 club 那个 president 创建自己的 club， 辩论队的队长，然后学生会主席，然后又是那个就是他的那个又开飞机，对吧？拿到那个商照，然后又就是美国什么民兵一备役的这些什么的，都是就是社会活动非常非常的多。那么那他选的Harvard 的选择的时候，肯定是说他要的人才就是情商和智商双高的人才。所以你如果是只是光学习好，但是你没有任何的就是对社会的这个责任感或者是凸显的这个个性的优势， 他肯定是觉得哦，你不是我的人，你不是我需要的一种人才，所以你们要把小朋友早一点培养，并不是说，哎，我给他上所有的社会活动，把孩子累得非常的就是说疲惫，就是说，他是你要找到他真正的兴趣点，比如说你要问他你真正喜欢什么，比如说象棋、围棋、游泳、跑步啊、一大堆，然后但是他没有一样他特别精的东西，你要真正问他你感兴趣什么，那么在这个点上你去帮他去培养他的特长。他特别感兴趣的东西，他在高中4年有一个非常大的冲劲。那么，如果是你过早的有顾问介入的话，那顾问会给他很多建议，跟他进行每周1次或每2周1次的 talk，会了解他你到底是一个想要做什么，有什么兴趣爱好。那么顾问也会真正的把他往藤校的那个精英的那个人才上去培养，帮他培养成就是你真正想要的就是藤校需要的那种人，而并不仅仅是我只是上一个藤校就 OK 了。实际上你如果成为一个非常有能力的一个人，那么就说你无论去哪里做，你无论遇到什么样的困难，可能你都会过得非常好你的人生会非常的顺遂，你会很成功。最重要的是说他也很开心很快乐，这是一个很重要的一点。所以是说我有兴趣的话可以跟我们联系我们会有一个免费的 talk， 跟你的 Sam 呀，或者是 Alex， 或者是我们帮你，都是可以跟你有一个免费的一个 talk， 然后进行对你的孩子进行一个评估。这有一个好像 questions， 就是不知道他在不在。
我没看到。
如果有问题的话，也可以把自己的麦打开，然后直接说也可以。
或者大家也可以在活动结束之后，再发一次邮件到刚刚的那一个tomorrowelite@gmail.com， 我再分享一次，然后我们就透过邮件保持联系也行。
对，对，现在中国家长的意识越来越强了，每年咨询我们的家长非常非常多，然后我们接到的客户也很多，就是我们也是希望把所有的学生都送去非常理想的大学，但是如果是说越早规划越好，如果你从5、6年级就开始重视，或者是说你从比如说7、8年级的时候再开始去好好的去让你的孩子跟顾问沟通，就是塑造一个非常好的一个性格，然后同时呢，就是说培养他的社会活动。那么如果他有一个非常强大的一个动力，他对学习自然而然的就会有一个水到渠成的一个结果。他会我要想要这个，我要想要那个，我想要把我的那个 SAT 或者我的学业提高到一个分数。这个问题是 how much the essays service？
我刚刚回复了，就是
你可以跟我联系，然后我们会根据你不同的需求给你一个定价。每一个顾问的报价不一样。
And also，
我们之前3、4个顾问，3、4个顾问的每个顾问的报价不一样。
Yeah. Lynn, and also there are different ways to help students. One way is to just meet with the student for one session and be able to give as much help in that one session as possible. Kind of like give the student an overview. That could be for an essay, a specific essay, to do a final check. It can be the students who doesn't have any idea on what to write for the essay, and just meet that 1 hour to go through the brainstorming session that Sam mentioned earlier. It can also be a student at a younger age who wants some kind of essay tutoring, it can also be student at any time who wants some kind of college counseling help. So because there are different kind of needs, it's probably easier to let Bella know. Yeah, so please, if possible, please message Bella, and Bella will tell you more about the pricing for essay tutoring.
对，你可以跟我联系，比如说加微信啊，或者是email 都可以，或者直接打电话发短信也可以，我把我电话放进来。给我发 message 也可以。看一下啊，我把我的电话放上来。就是可以给我发短信。对，如果你觉得发 email 比较慢的话，就是发短信给我也可以。我们可以约一个时间，跟你的小孩进行一个，就是顾问进行一个 talk，然后我们定一个计划，比如说 essay 这块儿帮你看一下。对，希望我们的中国的孩子越来越好。我们非常的华人，我们华人的孩子，包括华人的非常的优秀。但是如果能锦上添花的话，在我们的顾问的帮助下，在我们公司的帮助下，能锦上添花，每一个孩子都能拿到自己理想的大学，就特别开心了。特别好，这也是我们做教育工作者的一个，非常大的一个欣慰和职责。那么最重要的时候，还是你要去爱你的小孩儿，关心你的小孩儿。我觉得教育呢，作为父母的，不仅仅是说教或者是责备，也不是仅仅是就是训斥，而是要首先是爱，就是 first 你要去爱你的小孩儿，同时呢，你要去跟他交流要多交流。有很多家长说孩子不跟我说话呀，或者怎么样，就说交流很少。实际上是你可能小的时候会跟他，你一直在训斥他，或者是说教训他，所以他肯定不愿意跟你交流。如果你把姿态放低，就像普通朋友一样，或者是说你把姿态放得更低，你觉得他是你家里的就是大老板。可能你把他当领导看待，那么可能这个交流就顺畅很多，那么孩子就会愿意跟你说，跟你交流，这个非常好。所以是说，如果你有很多解决不了的家庭的这种跟孩子情绪上的问题，也可以交给我们的顾问，包括 Alex， 包括 Sam， 他们都非常擅长于跟学生进行沟通，像大哥哥一样的，然后孩子会把心里话跟他们说，他们会提出很多解决方案。这样有助于孩子跟你们就是没有家庭革命，然后同时要把学业提升，同时要创建自己的很多的社会活动，塑造成真正的精英人才。所以说我觉得这个工作也非常的有意义。如果家长愿意跟我们联系的话，也可以找我们，我们也有这种就是高中规划大学申请的群，也会经常在群里发送一些讲座信息呀，或者是说有一些升学的一些知识啊观点啊，都会在群里发布，你都随时都可以跟我们联系，有兴趣的话可以跟我们联系。好的，好，那行，大家晚安，周末快乐，我们下次再见。
拜拜。
拜拜。